Morning, Dean. My name is Leo. I'm an addict. I'm from Dodge City. I'll be your chairperson for this meeting. We'll start the meeting with a moment of silence and for those who'd like to join the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I think there are a couple of announcements that Ron want to make.
Good morning. My name is Ryan. I'm an addict from Topeka. I think you'll notice that a lot of the people that are doing some of the things don't jive with what the program says, but we've got a lot of willing people, so we've got a program anyway. First announcement I'd like to make this morning is we'd like to either have a show of hands or anyone who would like a vegetarian plate at the banquet meeting. Would you please contact the registration booth by 4 o'clock today? And just for an idea, is there anybody in here that would like to have a vegetarian plate?
Yeah, vegetarian plate?
Mm-hmm. At this time, we would like to remind the press or any other persons attending the convention who are not NA members and who are not familiar with the importance of our 11th and 12th traditions, which deal with anonymity revolving around our fellowship. Who you see here, what is said here, stays here when you leave this meeting. If you would like to do an article or have any questions about this, please contact Cindy P., Public Relations Chairperson. We do appreciate the media's or any other concerned person's parts they play in helping us carry the message, and by working together we can accomplish each our goals. Also, we would like to remind all persons attending the convention that you must wear or have your name tags with you in order to be admitted to various events.
Thank you, Ron. Pat H., will you please read how it works?
Thank you, Leo. My name is Pat Hull. I'm a drug addict and alcoholic from Topeka, Kansas. Hi, everybody. NA is a non-profit fellowship or society of men and women for whom drugs has become a major problem. We are recovered addicts who meet regularly to help each other to stay clean. This is a program of complete abstinence from all drugs. There is only one requirement for membership, the honest desire to stop using. There are no musts in NA, but we suggest that you keep an open mind and give yourself a break. Our program is a set of principles written so simply that we can follow them in our daily lives. The most important thing about them is that they work. There are no strings attached to NA. We are not affiliated with any other organizations. We have no leaders, no initiation fees or dues, no pledges to sign, no promises to make to anyone. We are not connected. Anyone may join us regardless of age, race, color, creed, religion, or lack of religion. We are not interested in what or how much you used or who your connections were, what you have done in the past, how much or how little you have, but only in what you want to do about your problem and how we can help. The newcomer is the most important person at any meeting because we can only keep what we have by giving it away. We have learned from our group experience that those who keep coming to our meetings regularly stay clean. If you want what we have to offer and are willing to make the effort to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. These are suggested only, but they are the principles that made our recovery possible. 1, we admitted we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, we humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of those steps, we tried to carry this message to addicts and to practice these principles in all our affairs. This sounds like a big order, and we can't do it all at once. We didn't become addicted in one day, so remember, easy does it. The only way to keep from getting or continuing a habit is not to take that first fix, pill, or drink. If you're like us, you know that one is too many and 1,000 never enough. We put great emphasis on this, for we know that when we use drugs in any form or substitute one for another, we release our addiction all over again or create a new one. The substitution of alcohol has caused a great many addicts to form a new addiction pattern, which in its progression brings us many problems as before. We seem to forget that alcohol is one of the oldest known drugs. It would appear that we are people with addictive personalities who are strongly susceptible to alcoholic addiction. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Ron, would you please read the 12th editions?
I'm Ron. I'm an addict and alcoholic from Wichita. We keep what we have only with vigilance, and just as freedom for the individual comes from the 12 steps, so freedom for the group springs from our traditions. As long as the ties that bind us together are stronger than those that would tear us apart, all will be well. 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on NA unity. 2, for our group purpose there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as He may express Himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. 3, the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop using. 4, each group should be autonomous, except in matters affecting other groups or NA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry the message to the addict who still suffers. 6, an NA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the NA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, or prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every NA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Narcotics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, NA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10, NA has no opinion on outside issues, hence the NA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
Thank you, Ron. Our first speaker, I don't know too much about. I'll try to get a little information. This is I'm not talking. So I'm going to let him do the talking. I'd like to introduce Martin C. from Vancouver.
Morning. I am really nervous. I'm not kidding. I just shook hands with a few people, and I was wondering why I was the only one that had cold, sweaty hands. Everybody else is warm. My name is Martin Chess, and I'm an alcoholic and an addict. Hi. And I am from Vancouver, BC. I wasn't born there, but I've lived there all but 2 years of my life. The first year of my life, I lived in Portland, Oregon, and up until 6 months ago, I lived in Topeka, Kansas. So this is a homecoming for me, really, and I'm glad to be in Kansas. There's a topic for today, but I probably won't stick to it. It's called People, Places, and Things, and that's really the story of my story, is people, places, and things, and how they've affected my life. Also, I'm not very comfortable standing up because my legs are shaking, okay? And they really are. You know, I hope it goes away because I don't like feeling like this. I used to take drugs and I used to drink, so I wouldn't feel like this. But I don't want to do that anymore, and that's why I'm here. I was sitting here and I was looking at a T-shirt, the first table here, that says "willing," you know, and that's really, I guess, why I'm here. You know, because I'm willing to go to any length to keep away from doing what I did for so long. And I'd like to share, before I really start telling what it was like for me and what happened and what it's like now, how I got here. I got a call about 4 months ago from a fellow that's sitting down at the first table here, Ron D., who you know, and the program chairman. He called me and he said, "Would you like to come to Wichita and talk at the World Convention?" And my pulse rate went up about 100 points. And I said yes. I didn't even think about it. I just said yes. I think like a lot of us do when we're asked to do something in the program. And then we talked for a while, and I talked to Cindy, and I hung up the phone, and I said, "What have I done? My God," you know, really. And then for the next 2 weeks, I'd go to bed at night, and I'd close my eyes, and I'd start rehearsing a speech. And so I called Cindy and Ron again, and I said, I told them about this, you know, I shared it over the phone, and Cindy said, "You might as well stop doing that because you'll get up there and you won't remember a goddamn word anyway." And it's true, I don't remember anything. I said I was born in Portland, Oregon, and I was. And by some unusual circumstance, which I don't really understand, my parents were killed in an automobile accident when I was less than a year old. And I was chosen by two really nice people from Vancouver who took me to Vancouver and gave me what I consider to be every opportunity in the world to be anything I wanted to be. And I'll tell you, there's one thing I didn't want to be, and that was a drug addict, and certainly not an alcoholic. My parents, really, my parents, as I said, were really nice people. My mother is still living. She's 80 years old. She's got a lot of problems. I think she's sick because of my illness, and she's not very well now. I went over to visit her the day I left, Wednesday when I came down here, and I think she's got, a little more understanding now. My dad, who's been gone for 11 years, was a business executive. He had his own business. He was in the grocery business, produce business, and he provided everything that we needed and everything that we wanted. And I don't have any brothers or sisters. I'm an only child, and I think that has a lot to do. I think it has a lot to do with what's happened to me, and I understand it now. You know, I understand it a lot better than I used to. I started school in a private school. You know, nothing but the best for this one, and I think I felt different. I was 6 years old, like everybody is when they start school, but they put me in the second grade because I could read. And so right away it was having to keep up. And as you can tell, I'm not very tall, and I never have been. And I guess I never will be. I stopped growing about, 30 years ago. Anyway, I went to that school for 1 year, and because my parents didn't want me to go so far to school, they sent me to a Catholic private school that was a block away from where we lived. And that way they could watch me going and coming. I was a little bit overprotected. I was a whole lot overprotected. And they wanted me to be perfect, and I was. And I got good grades in school. In spite of being a year ahead of myself in school, I got good grades. I guess I was endowed with a little bit of intelligence, and I didn't have to study. I just had to pay attention in class. And after 2 years at the Catholic high school, I'm Jewish, by the way, and I used to think that made me unique because I thought I was the only Jewish addict in the country, but I'm not. And I'm certainly not the only Jewish alcoholic either. I left that Catholic school, and I learned a little bit of discipline in those two private schools, but I didn't use it very well. I went to the public school system, and when I was in high school, I met alcohol. That was quite a long time ago, and that was before drugs were really in fashion, and so I started to drink. And I remember one incident really well. really well. You know, I went to a party the first year, I think it was my junior year, I can't remember exactly, I was 15 years old. And I remember the beginning of the party, but I don't remember the end, and I don't remember how I got home, you know, and I woke up the next morning and I didn't feel too well. And I did what every good, normal young alcoholic would do. The following weekend, I did the same thing. And I continued to do that for a long, long time, you know, and I didn't understand it. My parents drank very, very little. None of my parents' friends drank very much, and I wasn't aware of drugs. I didn't become aware of drugs until I was 35 years old, you know, and that's old, at least for me. I graduated from high school, and I remember the night of my graduation really well. I was on the school golf team, and I remember the graduation was on a Friday night, and I showed up the next morning for a golf match at one of these fancy country clubs, and I still had on my tuxedo. You know, I teed it up with my tuxedo on. You know, I mean, that's a little bit bizarre, I think. And I didn't play very well, needless to say. My head was a little sore. And I continued to do that. I went to the University of British Columbia, which is a large university sitting in a really nice spot overlooking the ocean, and I spent a lot of time looking at the ocean. But I went to class, you know, and I managed to get through there. I drank my way through. I had an opportunity about 6 months ago when I got home from Topeka to get a transcript of my grades. And I believe that alcoholism and addiction, all addictions, are progressive because my grades went progressively down. You know, I looked at them and boy, that wasn't a spiritual awakening, that was a rude awakening. So I'm grateful that I was able to graduate from that school. And I went into law school and I didn't like it, so I went back and finished my business administration, and I went into business. I went into business with my dad, not in the business that he'd been in, but into an investment type business. And up until about 1.5 years ago, when I was unable to, well, it's 2.5 years, I guess now, I was unable to carry on. I stayed in that business up until then, and my wife is still running that business, thank God for her. And at that point, you know, I had everything. I had everything going for me. Just couldn't have been any better. It was excellent. I got married a nice girl who also has made it to this program. I'm not married to her anymore, but we get along better now than we did in the 11 or 12 years that we were married. It's really amazing to me. And we got married, and I think I had kind of a remission. It was time to raise children. I have 4 children, and it was time to settle down and have babies, and that's what we did. That was the thing to do. We had a nice little house. It didn't have a white picket fence, but it could have just as easily. And we had everything. We had 2 cars in the garage. We had 2 television sets. We had all the things that I thought would make me happy, you know, but they didn't, you know. I had plenty of money, and I had nice clothes, and so did she, and we had nice kids, you know, and we still do. And from then on, things just really started to change rapidly. The first 5 years we were married, I didn't drink very much, and I didn't use any drugs. Then things really happened. Our marriage started to get a little rocky. And one Christmas, my brother-in-law presented me with a little box about the size of a cigarette package. And I didn't know what was in it, and he wouldn't let us open it while the family was there. And I couldn't understand that. You know, what could it possibly be? I was really naive. I was about 30 or 31 years old, and I was really naive. I still am. And after the family left, there were just the 3 of us, my wife, and this was her brother, and myself. And I opened it, and it was a little plastic box of grass. And I'd never seen it before. You know, it looked just like any other kind of tobacco to me. And so he rolled it up, and we smoked it, you know. But it wasn't like any other tobacco to me then. Hey, I loved it. I want to tell you, I really liked it. I liked the way I felt, you know, and I wanted to do it again, and I did. And I did it intermittently for quite some time, you know, and our marriage steadily went downhill. The kids started to grow up and go to school, and finally one day we were visiting some relatives in Spokane, Washington, and she told me that she wanted to separate and divorce, and that was in 1967. And that just, you know, I said, we can't, you know, and I just went crazy. I really did. I went really crazy. I was sober at the time, and I couldn't handle it at all. And for the next 2 years, I walked around on eggs. You know, my life was totally different. I became nervous, and I'd never been nervous before. I became frightened, and I had been frightened before, but not in this way. You know, I was really frightened. And I was, you know, I was terrified. I didn't want to be alone. You know, and that's what I really feared. I feared being alone. And, you know, I was right. It was horrible, because a couple of years later, I was alone. You know, and I felt really awful. I've heard people talk about the loneliness of people that are addicted, and boy, I can really identify. 2 years later, in 1969, my dad died, and I'm going to use the word people because the topic's people, places, and things, and I didn't appreciate him at all. I didn't appreciate the things that he tried to do for me. He was a really honest man, you know, and I didn't understand that. You know, he'd tell me the truth, and I thought he was angry with me, you know, that he was just angry, not that he was trying to help me to be a better person. I didn't realize that. And from that day on, you know, and I remember another thing that I'm going to go back and share. I remember really well that I never ever told him that I loved him, you know, and I didn't even know it then. I didn't even know it. I do now, you know, but I didn't know it then. He was a great influence on a lot of people, and for the next 10 years after he died, his influence just didn't seem to be anywhere. You know, I just did everything wrong. Even the right decisions were made for the wrong reasons. Well, a few months after, and I think that the terror that my dad inspired in my first wife, I think that kept the marriage together for another 6 months. And then one day, my wife called me down, and she said, "I'd like you to move out of this house today." And I thought, wow, you know, but I did it. You know, I did it. And that was the first time, well, in my memory, that I'd ever lived alone. I moved into an apartment not very far away because I wanted to be near my kids, and I was terrified. You know, I got into heavy drinking. Not every day. I didn't drink every day. I was taught that a businessman was supposed to go to business every day, and I did. And I attended to it fairly well at first. But I wasn't really paying attention. I was looking for something else. I found it when I came into NA, but I was looking for true love, I guess. And I looked in bars, you know, I looked in discos. I traveled sometimes. I looked for it when I traveled. I looked for it everywhere. And I did this for, a few months. And one day I was in a bar, and I wasn't drunk, not drunk at all, you know. And I'd been smoking a little grass. I should have told you that. And I'd been popping a few pills, a few hundred here and there. And but not in, you know, I wasn't blotto all the time, not yet, you know, but I got there. I was in a bar, and I was talking to a couple people, and someone came along who later became one of those people, you know, one of the people that I got loaded with all the time. And I had a nice apartment, so we went up there and we did a little mescaline. Now, I'd never done anything like that before, and I'd never used a needle, but boy, I really liked that, you know. I thought it was cool, you know. I thought it was cool, and I thought it was different. And I can remember thinking about, boy, if my straight friends knew what I was doing, you know, boy, that's just, you know, that was cool. I thought it was cool. And it wasn't. The next day, the same group got together at the same time. We didn't go to a bar, we just went straight to my place after work. And they said, well, this isn't the same stuff. This is heroin. And I said, oh, you know, I'd heard of heroin. I mean, I was naive, I'm not kidding. And we did some. And there was the true love that I'd been looking for. You know, it was great. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you it wasn't, because it was. I loved it. And I loved it for quite a while after that. And it changed. It changed me. I guess maybe that was the first thing that I can really say I really loved, you know. And I loved it till it got me. I heard someone share last night, in fact, I think it was Bob, it was, shared this late last night that he didn't know he was hooked. Well, I didn't know I was hooked. I said I'd never get hooked. I was just going to chip away 2 or 3 times a week, and I did for a while. Actually, I did it for a long time, I find out now. I did it for 2 months. And then all of a sudden one day, it was a rainy day. We get a lot of rain up where I live. And I woke up one morning and I thought I had the flu. I really did. And when Bob said that last night, I almost fell off the chair. And so I called one of these friends and I said, hey, I've got the flu. And they said, I know exactly what you need. And they told me what it was, And I was determined never to be sick again. And I wasn't. Well, I was. That's not true. And so I continued, I continued. I was fortunate. I didn't have to steal to feed my habit. I didn't have to do really very much in the beginning except write checks. And I did it, I did it. I had income from my business, and I was still able to work, and I fed my habit. At first my habit was, this was about 10 years ago, my habit was somewhere around $15 a day. Now that sounds like, that's not very much, but it got up to 300, and it got up in a hurry. And my whole life just changed. It used to feel good, and I couldn't get loaded anymore. When there wasn't my drug of choice, I took everything else. I had a PDR, so I used to look it up in the PDR to see what the side effects were and what it would feel like, And I even gave that up, and I just, I didn't want to be an addict, but I sure as hell was one, and I still am. And now I'm grateful for it. And I was going to open by saying something about this, but I can say it now, I'm grateful, because I wouldn't have what I have today. No way. I was thinking about this last night when I got into bed. I had a lot of things, material things, and they meant an awful lot to me. I've had big cars and nice homes and the whole thing, and I got awful close to giving the whole thing away. I gave a lot of it away, but not quite all of it. Anyways, after about 3 years of this carrying on, like all of us have done, I met this lady, and I'd been divorced for about 2 years, and I'd just been living really in the street, really is what I was doing. My street was at home in my apartment, and I had people around me that would do what I needed to have done to get what I needed to have then, and I believe I did need it. I met this lady. I was invited to dinner at some friends, and there was this couple that invited us, and there was this lady. And I don't know, I don't know whether it was chemistry or cosmic radiation or whatever you want to call it, but she was really a neat lady. She still is. And we had an interesting conversation, followed by a series of dating, courting. In fact, she asked me out the first time we ever went out. I didn't have any confidence, and I still don't. That's why I'm nervous, when I get up here. It's because I don't have a whole lot of self-confidence. And the people, it's really strange, because the people that invite us for dinner are divorced now. And so we were just in the right place at the right time. Anyways, after about 6 months of going out together, I was using the whole time, and it was difficult. It was like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing. I'd see her 2 or 3 times a week. We were both working. I was trying to, and she was. And she still is. She's working while I'm here, which is, that's good. And I sat her down. I wanted to marry her. I wanted to marry her. And I don't even know exactly why now, because as I see it, she really got in the way, of my using. She really did. And she really got in the way, as you'll hear a little bit later. I sat her down and I told her I was an addict. And she said, well, we're going to do something about that. And I went to the psychiatrist. I'd gone to 2 psychiatrists. I've had a lot of therapy. I think I've had about 200 years of it. And I'll tell you more about that too. I went to a psychiatrist and I told him I was a heroin addict. I've learned to use the word junkie now. I used to think that was a dirty word. Now I think it's okay. And he didn't understand it, I don't think, a whole lot better than I did, and he sent me to what we call a methadone maintenance clinic. And I went on methadone. And I was naive, I really was. I told them that my habit was about half the size of what it was, so they gave me half the methadone that I probably needed. I I conned myself. And in 10 days, they had me cured. They really did. And we got married. And for 5 months, I didn't use. I didn't know about alcoholism, and I didn't know about any other drugs. And I suppose that I drank. I know I did. Not in any large amount, but I drank, I guess, whatever I needed to drink. But I didn't use. I didn't fix. So that's what I didn't do. I was looking for that word, and I found it. But then one day, I was having a conversation with my mother. And my relationship with my mother from the time that my dad died was really bad. Really bad. And we got into a little argument. And I had 2 lines in the office, 2 telephone lines. And the other phone rang, and I picked it up, and it was a connection. And I said, yeah, 20 minutes, yeah. And I got loaded, and I stayed that way for 6 years. And it was tough. I've heard, people talk about being willing to go to any length. I was willing to go to any length not to be sick. And my habit got bigger and bigger. And my assets and my whatever got smaller and smaller. And I got out of a lot of scrapes. I've never been in jail, and that's a miracle. That really is a miracle. I've been hassled, and I don't know why, why they didn't take me in. I'd have been a great example, so-called respectable citizen. Executive junkie, I guess, would be a good term. I don't know. And that really is a miracle, because I should really be in jail right now. I shouldn't be standing here. It's only 15 months since I came to Kansas for treatment, and I think they send us away for longer than 15 months. I'm sure they would have. Anyways, I continued to go to psychiatrists. 7 years ago, I went to a psychiatrist who I have a lot of respect for today, and he told me, he said, you're going to kill yourself, it's just a matter of time. And I went out after the appointment and went into the nearest washroom and fixed. I was going to show him. And he was right. I didn't know it, and I didn't understand it at all. I quit him. He moved to another town, and I used to think it's because he couldn't handle me. That was a little bit of ego thrown in, and apparently he's still practicing there, and he's doing okay. And so I went to another psychiatrist. I tried all the cures. I tried switching drugs. I tried geographical cures. I tried everything. I tried everything except I didn't know about AA or NA. I just didn't know. I'd heard of AA, but I really didn't know anything about it. My father-in-law, who has died 5 or 6 years ago, he was an alcoholic, and he used to say so and continue to drink, and he never did get sober until he died. And now I understand. I really do. He knew about AA, but he wouldn't go. And like they say, maybe he wasn't ready to, and he had to die to get sober. Anyway, I went to this psychiatrist, and I told him, I was more honest with him than I'd been with the first 2. I told him a lot, about what was happening with me. And he used to say, well, aren't you scared of getting busted? Aren't you scared you're going to die? And I used to say, hell no, I'm too smart. I was smart, all right. Well, I went to him, and he put me back on methadone. And it's exactly 3 years ago now. Well, it's 4 years, I guess. 4 years ago. And I thought that was great for 3 days. And then I went just back to the street. And that's when things started to really get bad. The dope got worse. It cost more. And I had to spend more time at it. It was harder to get. And so my business, I just couldn't handle business. I used to go down there at 9 o'clock pretending that I had to go to work like a big businessman. And at 10 o'clock I used to go in the John and change to my jeans and my street clothes, and I hit the street. And up until I came to this miraculous program, the biggest accomplishment that I had made up until then was that I was able to cop dope, just like everybody else. And I thought that was cool. And some days I'd go with 2 or 3 other people, and I'd be the one that would cop the dope, me. And that was good. That made me feel really important, really important. And I guess I had to do that, because I kept on, and it just got a whole lot worse. I'm losing track of the chronological order, and I still have trouble with that. My train of thought isn't really very clear. At times it's better than others. My knees aren't shaking anymore. I'm starting to feel good. I'll tell you, I kept taking methadone, and this was from a doctor. I'd get a prescription for it, and I'd take it every day, and then I'd hit the street so that I could get really loaded. I mean, it just didn't do anything for me. I have a resentment against methadone clinics. I think that's probably pretty obvious. I really do. I'm opposed to methadone. I don't think too much of it. We were going to supper last night, and we went by a local methadone clinic, and I got an instant resentment. I really did. And I have no basis for it, really. I know that he was trying to help me, and I know that he thought he was doing the right thing, and maybe in the end he really was, because I got where I belong, where I finally feel accepted. And for the next couple of years, I got really sick. I used to fool myself. We'd go on vacations, and we'd do things, and I would use only methadone for a month. And I'd get home, and I'd hit the streets again, usually within 24 hours, sometimes sooner, never longer. And I liked that lifestyle, but I was getting really sick. I was starting to go to things like this, where there'd be 50 or 100 or 200 people, and I'd be really lonely. I'd feel like nobody understood me. And I even said that. I shared that with my wife, and I shared it a little bit with the psychiatrist. And I noticed all kinds of things. I forgot to tell you that a year after we were married, we had a little girl. She's 6.5 now. And for the first 5.5 years of her life, I didn't know her, and probably what's more important, she didn't know me at all. And our relationship has really changed. Well, it was the same old thing, just like it is for all of us. Every day was the same. I didn't have anything to look forward to except fear and more fear. I was afraid I was going to get sick. I was afraid there wouldn't be any dope, and I didn't want to face it. I didn't know how, and I didn't want to, and I didn't have you people to help me. I didn't think I had anybody. I didn't think there was anybody. Well, a year and a half ago, we went to California for our annual vacation, and this time I really proved how sick I was because I took some dope with me, besides my methadone, and I'd never done that before. Not on a long vacation like that, and we drove down. By this time, I'd been able, by the grace of God, to get off of heroin, and I did that by switching to speed. And I'd done some speed before, but never in any large quantity. And now that I've had a little bit of education as far as drugs are concerned, I understand that stuff really, that's not very good for you. Well, at least it wasn't good for me. Anyway, I took a whole lot of it with me to California, thinking it would last for the whole month, and it lasted for a whole week. And then I was on the methadone. I slept for a lot that second week. I really crashed. Anyway, I thought we were having a really good time. Sue tells me now that it was just awful. It was terrible. I have a bad temper, and anger is a problem with me. And I spent a lot of time slamming doors and breaking things. And we came home. We got home. It was my mother's birthday. We took her to supper. And I thought I was okay, because I hadn't used anything else but my methadone for 3 weeks. And I thought I was clean. I really did. I didn't know what the word clean meant, but I thought I was clean. At 10 o'clock the next morning, I was out in the street again, and a couple of days later, and I started to get really bizarre then. I was doing things that when I look back at them, they kind of frighten me a little bit, but they also help me. And we went to the psychiatrist, back to my friend the psychiatrist, and he really is my friend. He really is. Sue said to him, "We've got to do something. He's not getting any better." And I just sat there totally oblivious. I mean, I didn't even argue with it. I didn't say anything. I mean, I had a lot of dope in my jacket pocket, and I didn't have to argue. I knew I was sick. I was starting to feel sick, starting to feel physically sick. And we went back the following week, and the doctor said, I'm going to send you to, if you'd like to go, I'm going to send you to Kansas. And I thought, oh, gee, I've never been there. And I said, well, whereabouts? Well, he said, I'm going to send you to the famous clinic that I was trained at in Topeka. I said, where the hell's that? And I really didn't know. And he said, but we can't get you in there for 6 weeks. And that was a license to try to kill myself in 6 weeks. And I did. I really tried hard. And I think I almost made it. I'd stay away for 3-4 days at a time, come home, and I'd be very remorseful and full of guilt and do a lot of crying, a lot of screaming, yelling, and a lot of nobody understands me, and all kinds of things, the good things that we used to do. And finally, the last week, and I remember it really well, and it's not that long ago, I remember, how sick I felt. I had a lot of pain, physical, and a whole lot of pain, emotional, a lot. And I didn't understand it, and I didn't want to go. Well, we were supposed to leave on a Sunday morning, and the plane connections from Vancouver to Seattle to Kansas City are terrible. There's like 3-4 hour waits, and I don't know the reason for that, but we drove down to Seattle on a Saturday afternoon. We were supposed to leave in the afternoon, and I was lying there recovering from a whole week of, well, a speed run as I understand it now, and I couldn't get up, and I finally got it together enough to get in the car. I think it was about 8 or 9 o'clock, and I don't remember the trip from Vancouver to Seattle. Sue does. She really remembers it, and she reminds me of it every once in a while. Well, we got to a nice motel, and we checked in, and I went to bed. All I did was transfer from my bed in the car to the bed in the motel. And I woke up at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning, and she had ordered me a sandwich the night before. And I picked up the plate and heaved it at the mirror. I don't know why I did that, but that's the insanity, I guess. And I was insane. Our plane was supposed to leave at 12:30, and I wouldn't go to the airport. I would not go to the airport. There was a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but Sue says now that she should have left me there in that motel. Because she took me home to Vancouver, and I escaped. I escaped treatment. She took me straight to the hospital to be examined because I told her I was having a heart attack. I did. I really did. And they checked me over, and they said, do you use drugs? And I said, occasionally. And occasionally. And anyway, they sent me home, and they said to her, I don't think you better let him out of the house. And I had no intention of leaving until Monday morning. Monday morning, I was going to hit the streets again. And the doctor came over, my friend the psychiatrist, trained up the road here in Topeka. And he said, you've got to go. It's a matter of life and death. And I was lying there not feeling very well, but I certainly didn't understand what he meant. I was okay. I thought I was okay. And it seems that I found out later that he didn't know that there was a treatment program in that hospital. He didn't know it at all. He was sending me there because I was crazy.
Please turn your tape. Do not rewind. Please turn your tape and continue the talk on side 2.
I wasn't crazy at all. I was totally insane. And anyways, the next morning, was time to go. Same plane next day. And we were going to drive to Seattle again. And we got up, I think, around 7 o'clock, 7:30, and I said, I'm not going. And as I remember it was 7:30, and Sue said, I'm going downstairs and I'm going to have breakfast. And if you're not dressed by 8:30, I am going to the lawyer, and it's going to be all over. And I'd been through that before, you know, and it frightened me. You know, I didn't want to be alone. And I knew that that's what I was facing. And I was getting sick, and I needed help, you know, and maybe I wanted it too. I call it a rude awakening, not a spiritual awakening, and it was a rude awakening. Well, I sat there and thought about it, I guess, for 20 minutes, and I didn't have any more dope except the methadone. I was still on that, and I had a large supply of it, you know, because I was coming to Topeka for 2 weeks, and I had 2 weeks' supply. And I called downstairs to her, and I said, I'll go. And I did. I got in the car, and I didn't feel very well. I felt really rotten, and I'm sure that everyone in this room has felt like that. And I got in the car, and we drove to Seattle. And we got to the airport, and it was a question of whether I was going to be able to walk to the plane or have to be taken in a wheelchair. And we had a lot of time before the plane, and so I walked, and I walked carefully, you know, because I could hardly walk. I was in a lot of pain. And I recognize it now. I know what it was, you know. Anyways, we got on the plane, and by the way, I hadn't had a drink for, I think it was about 5 months then, and I didn't even know why. You know, I didn't need to drink. You know, I was well loaded without drinking. And we got on the plane, and the first thing, of course, the stewardess did was bring around the cart, and I righteously had a 7-Up. And Sue had a little bottle of wine, you know, and I don't know why I didn't drink. You know, I don't know. I was feeling pretty rotten, and now as I see it, probably if I had to do it over again, and I hope I never do, I'm sure I would have drank. We got to Topeka, and we got to Kansas City. And this was about a year, and I guess it's 15 months ago. It was the night that the Kemper Arena roof fell in. My roof fell in that night, too. And we got in the car, and we drove to Topeka, checked into a motel, and the next morning we showed up at the Nut House. And I went through 2 days of diagnostic evaluation, it's called. I couldn't say that then, you know, but I can say it now. To find out, you know, why I was crazy. I used to tell my psychiatrist, I used to say, if you only tell me why I'm doing it, I'll stop, you know. And I really thought I would, you know, but I know I wouldn't have. And now I don't really care why. It's not important to me anymore, you know. I don't have to do it again. You people told me that, and I'm grateful for that. I went into the third day for this diagnostic stuff, and they said, we think you better have an interview with the alcohol recovery program. And I didn't even know what that meant. And I said, sure, okay, I'm okay, but I'll go. And I spent an hour with a counselor. And he tells me now, and I've shared this a lot because I lived there for 9 months, he tells me now that I was totally bizarre. You know, the things I said and the way I was acting, he said he knew where I belonged. And so they suggested that I go into to treatment. And I said, well, I'll go up and take a look at it, you know, and if it's up to my standard, maybe I will go. But I never, I was living 1 minute at a time, and I never really thought I'd have to. Well, I went up at noon the next day, and at 12:01 they had me checked in. And I was still on methadone, remember, so I was still loaded, you know, and I thought it was really cool. It was nice, you know, I liked it. And I had that methadone. I think I had about 500 milligrams of it, and it was back at the motel, and I didn't really think about it, but I said, well, let's go back to the motel and pack my bag, and we'll come back, you know. Well, I was thinking about it. And they said, no, we'll send your wife, and you just stay here. Really. And they searched me, and I didn't have any other drugs on me, you know, but I had this terrible resentment. Why were they searching me, you know? Good upstanding citizen like me, why would they search me? But they did. And I checked in, and for the next 10 days, I was fine. You know, I was fine. I was real loaded. And they put me on methadone, and they told me how they were going to withdraw me. And of course, I'd never done that. You know, I'd been on it for almost 3 years, and I didn't know I was loaded. I didn't know. And then the shit hit the fan. I remember the last day I took that last methadone tablet, and I remember the next day. You know, I didn't sleep all that night, and I remember I'd been looking at a little piece of paper that was on the wall. I know now how it got there, and I know now why it was there. It said NA, Narcotics Anonymous, and I'd heard all this crap about alcohol, and I wasn't an alcoholic, so you know I wasn't going to go to AA. It wasn't for me. But NA was different. You know, I knew that I'd used narcotics for years, and I knew I wanted to go. They wouldn't let me out of the place. The first week there were just 2 meetings in Topeka then, and they wouldn't let me go because I was still on drugs. I was still loaded, and I don't know what they thought, but they wouldn't let me go. And I had this big fat resentment. And finally, the next week, they let me go. By this time, I could hardly walk. But I went. You know, I went to that basement at 4th and Washburn in Topeka. And I sat there. Boy, I was so far out of it, I didn't know what was happening. You know, but I do now. You know, there was something there. You know, and I could feel it. I left that meeting and went back to treatment. And I was high for about 2 hours, you know, and I recognize it now. Then I didn't know what it was, you know. To be really honest, I think the reason I went to that meeting, and probably the reason I wanted to go, was because I didn't know about NA, and I'd never seen a straight addict before. I think I went there to cop dope. I really do. I'm sure I did, you know. I thought, well, there's got to be somebody there that's got something. And there was, but not what I was looking for. I went back the following week. I was too busy on Sunday suntanning and sitting by the pool to go to the Sunday meeting, but I went the next Thursday night, and they told me to keep coming back, and I wondered what they wanted. You know, I didn't have any money. I'd been stripped of all that. All my credit cards were gone. My card had been taken away, and it was good. They call it tough love, and for me it worked. My wife left the day after I went into treatment, and she left me with $40. And being a businessman and having used calculators, I knew how loaded that would get and how long it would last. And besides, I smoke, and I wouldn't be able to smoke if I used it for dope. So I went to that second meeting, and they told me, oh, by the way, I hadn't slept between the first meeting and the second meeting, and that was a week. I didn't sleep at all. And I smashed furniture. I threw a lamp at the wall, and there's still a hole there where I threw the lamp. And I had a lot of anger. You know, I've learned a little bit about how to deal with it. I don't get as angry as I used to. I've learned to deal with a lot of different feelings. I continued to go to those meetings. You know, there was something there that I wanted, and I got a little bit of it. You know. I was wondering where it was about a half hour ago, but I started to get it. And I'm a very compulsive person, really compulsive. I'm addicted to peanut butter and a lot of other things. I think I ate 7 peanut butter sandwiches one day in treatment, and I got addicted to NA, and I kept going. Well, after 5 weeks of treatment, they called me in. And the psychiatrist, my counselor, and my wife was back to visit. And I was just starting to get better, a little bit physically. The rest of it was yet to come. And they said, we think that we've decided that you better stay in Topeka for 6 months to a year. And I thought at the time that it was because they knew that if I went home, I'd be loaded in 24 hours. Well, I know that it wouldn't have taken me that long. I mean, I know it. And so I stayed. And it was a relief. You know, it was a relief not to have to go back. I think even then, I didn't want to go back to it. I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to go back to that place, and I didn't want to see those people, and I didn't want to use those things. You know, I'd seen enough needles, and I'd popped enough pills, and that was it. I didn't want to do it. And I was relieved. And so, and my wife she was really upset. She was really in tears. And, you know, because she wanted me to come home and she wanted everything to be just perfect. And it isn't yet. And I hope it never is, you know, because then I'm afraid I'll stop working on me. Well, I stayed in Topeka, and I loved it. In fact, I guess it was harder to leave there than really anything I've done in the last year and 3 months. And but the day came when I had to go home and face it. While I was in Topeka, I started to go to AA. I went back and recognized my problems that I'd had with alcohol. They weren't serious problems in terms of, well, I never slept in gutters and I never slept in a jail, you know, but I drank the same way as I used. And if I hadn't started with drugs, I would have been, I don't know what I would have become. It doesn't matter anyway, because I think of all drugs as the same. Alcohol to me is just a liquid form of the same thing I was taking, and for me. And I went to a whole lot of meetings. I'd never heard this 90 meetings in 90 days, but I went anyway. And that must have come from upstairs, because I just went. And I started to really enjoy it. I started to feel physically better. I started to go to therapy, more therapy. Only this time it was starting to work a little bit. And what was really important to me was what the people in this program, you know, they were my family. You know, they phoned me and asked me how I was, you know, and they talked to me when I needed help, and I needed it a lot. I had a couple of physical problems. I got the flu over the Christmas, New Year's vacation, and they came and looked after me at 3 in the morning, at 3 in the afternoon, whenever. And I started to realize that I couldn't do it alone. And things got really, really good. You know, we had a tight little group, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. I went to school, and I learned some things about my addiction. And I learned that maybe I can help someone else, you know. I used to think that I could help everyone, but that no one could help me. And that's not true anymore. I went home. I went home the end of February, and I'd only stayed for 2 days, and that was about enough. I found that I'd changed more than the people there, and I found it really hard to accept, but I escaped it. I went back to California for our annual vacation. I didn't really need one, but Sue did. She'd been running the family business, doing her own thing, and looking after the family. And we went to California, and we had a really good vacation. I went to meetings down there, and I found out that it was exactly the same as it was in Topeka. And that really blew me away. You know, I thought it would be completely different, and it was completely the same. And I met some really nice people. And that's hard for me to do, you know, because I'm really shy. And I'm really reserved. And there's probably people here that are thinking that that's not true, but that's because I know them, you know, and we understand each other, and I'm not shy around people in this program, except when it's time to get up and stand up and talk. Well, we went home 1st of April, just like we did every year, and I started going to meetings at home. While I was in Topeka, an NA group started in Vancouver, and I'd been to one meeting during a brief visit at Thanksgiving, and I liked what I saw, and I was grateful that it was there, because that worried me. You know, it was great to have it down here, you know, but what was I going to do at home? And it was put there for me, and it's good, and it's growing. It's excellent. Well, I was doing something wrong, and I don't know what it was, but after a month at home, I consciously decided to try it one more time, and I did. And I'm going to share a little bit about this, because to me this is the miracle of how God works in our lives. It really is. I got loaded on a Wednesday. I was loaded for 12 hours, and I got it all back. 29 years, and I got it all back in 12 hours. I couldn't believe it. I was sick. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't walk. I had no balance. I got the whole thing back. I'd had fear for the 10 and a half or 11 months that I'd been clean and sober. You know, I hadn't had a slip. I don't use the word slip. It was a conscious decision. I decided to do it, and I did it. And while I was out that night, Sue got a telephone call from Cindy, and she said, "He's loaded. I'm afraid he's loaded." And she was right, I was. I came home and I went through the whatever it was for 24 hours, and the phone rang about 11 o'clock at night, and I thought, who the hell's calling at 11 o'clock at night? And I was really feeling sick, guilty, remorseful, you name it. I had it. I had them all. And it was Cindy again. She wanted to talk to me, and I didn't want any part of her. I always said, if I ever get loaded again, I'm going to get as far away from the program. Well, I couldn't get any further away. I was 2,000 miles away. And finally I said, okay, I'll talk to her. And she told me that it was okay. I was going to be okay. And she didn't even, she didn't say anything. She didn't give me shit or anything else. She just said, you're going to be okay. And I got over it. And 3 or 4 days later is when Ron called to ask me to come here. And that scared the hell out of me. And now that I think about it, I can only think of it only could come from one place. My whole life has changed again since then. I just feel better. I can't even explain it. I'd like to be able to explain it, and being of an analytical nature, I'd like to explain it, but I can't. It's just changed completely. Coming down here it was a hassle till I got here. Today's Friday, I think. One of the few things that I was able to save from the wreckage of the past was a boat that we have, and I didn't save it, Sue did. And I'm grateful to her, and I'm grateful to Al-Anon, because we don't have an R-Anon, by the way, but I hope someday that she and some other people will be able to start it, and if I can help, I will. But we saved this boat. I don't know why, but we've spent the last few weeks on the boat, and Monday, being Labor Day, which is a holiday, as everyone knows, was the day to go home. And I needed this test before I got here. We had gale warnings on the water, and I was not able to take the boat home. And we were staying in a place where we had our car over there too. So one of us had to take the boat, and the other one had to take the car. And I mentioned that we have a 6-year-old, and she's a good sailor, so I took her and my mother-in-law, and I took the boat on Tuesday morning at 7 o'clock. It looked like it was really just a beautiful day, and off we went. And the first hour was beautiful. Sue took the car and she went on the ferry and she went home. And after about an hour or so, it got real windy and real rough. And I said the Serenity Prayer over and over and over. Because, I can handle some things, but there's lots of things I can't handle. And I needed help with this one. Our little one got sick, started to throw up, and my mother-in-law is not a very good sailor, and I needed help, and I got it. I got it now, and that's when I needed it. And I got home, and I was tired, and I thought, oh, geez, I got to fly all the next day, and I don't like flying. It's not my favorite way of spending the day, and it's okay for me to tell you that now. And I got home, and I was exhausted, but I was excited. I was excited about coming here. And I went to the airport, and we had a 9-hour trip getting here. It wasn't 9 hours of flying, but it was sitting in airports. And I was sharing this last night that I don't know whether it was fear. I'm not afraid of flying, by the way. I'm afraid of crashing. And I don't know, the last 15 or 20 minutes just arriving in Wichita, I was really getting excited. I knew now I was going to make it. And I was really excited, I said I was born in Portland, and really now that I think about it, I think I was really born in Kansas. I really do. Because I was kind of ready for this program, or not ready for it, but I could have used the program a lot before I ever took the first drink. I had problems then. I didn't recognize it, and I don't think anybody else did. And it took me a long time to get here. It really did. But I'm glad I'm here. I really am. I've left a lot of details out, but it's hard to shorten 30 years into 30 or 40 or 50 minutes. And I've talked a lot longer than I thought I was going to. The topic was supposed to be people, places, and things, and that's a hard one, because I started off, I think I was a nice person. I was okay. I started off in a very good place, and I started off with all kinds of really neat things. I had electric trains when I was a little kid. I had cars when I was in high school and college. And I had nice things, material things, but I didn't have the things that you people gave me. Now I've got real people, and I can come to places like this, and I can experience the kind of things that I've experienced in just such a short time. It really has been a short time, and I'm grateful. I really am. I wanted to talk last night really badly about the ties that bind us together. I did. I thought I had some really good things, and I'm going to share this, and then I'm going to sit down. There were two people there last night, and it doesn't matter who they were. One was the person that carried the message to me, and another was a person that I carried the message to, or tried to, several months later. And I hadn't seen that person since. Didn't know where she was, didn't know what had happened to her. And I was walking in here last night, and she was there. And that makes me really believe that this program works. I'm the kind of person that doesn't believe things, not easily unless I can see them. And I saw it, and I believe it. And I want to thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. It's really inspiring. I really can share some of that with you, because this is what the whole thing is about. We can share. That's how I can do it, because I need to share. If I don't, I get shitty. I get pretty damn bad. Our next gentleman, I don't know a thing about, but I hope to, because this is part of the